Welcome back to the environmental management of our blocked cats. So my name is Sarah, I'm the behaviour nurse here at Langford Vets, and I'm talking about the environmental management of blocked cats today. In this section, we are going to have a talk through the litter trays as the next environmental need of our cats. So there is a lot to cover in this section. It's not very exciting, but I will try and make it as interesting as possible. So ensuring that our cats have access to appropriate litter trays is an essential aspect of our meeting our cats' environmental and their behavioural needs. When we're thinking about litter trays, cats need to be able to carry out all of the normal elimination behaviours in the correct order so that they feel happy and comfortable using the litter trays we've provided. The normal elimination behaviour sequence includes digging, elimination, and then digging and covering up afterwards. So when we're thinking about litter trays, we need to ensure that they are suitable, that our cats can perform these behaviours. If we think about some of the popular or common litter trays at the moment, self-cleaning litter trays have become more popular. However, these can be quite aversive to our cats. If you think about the idea behind them is that there is a mechanical function that when the cat leaves the tray, it then either completely changes the litter or scrapes through and removes any of the soiled litter. This movement and noise can be very aversive for some cats. So especially if we've got concerns about lower urinary tract issues or FIC concerns, we'd advise against self-cleaning litter trays. When we're thinking about covered versus uncovered, this is very much personal preference for our cats. Covered trays may trap odours, so they can be a little bit more aversive for some cats. However, removing the top or having a vent on the top can help reduce this if our cats prefer a covered tray. Another thing to consider with a covered litter tray is if they have concerns about other cats in the house or cats outside of the house, is can they see what's going on? So is another cat approaching them when they are going in to use a tray or when they are leaving a covered litter tray. Some other things to remember when we're thinking about where to place a litter tray and which litter trays to use is we need to ensure that our trays, or their trays I should say, are in a quiet place where they've got some privacy. They are not going to want a litter tray that's in the middle of the kitchen in a busy area with lots of noise, lots of people, lots of things going on. We need to ensure that the litter trays are kept away from any food and water sources. Again, they do not want to be going to the toilet right next to any food or water. We need to ensure that there are enough trays for the number of cats in the household. The general rule of thumb, even though we couldn't find any research to back this up, is generally 1 tray per cat plus a spare. It's generally a good rule to go by so that we've always got at least 1 spare tray for the number of cats that we've got in the house, so that if every cat needs to go to the toilet at the same time, they can all have access to their own tray in a quiet, private location. We need to ensure that the litter trays are placed all over the house rather than all in one location. So by this I mean if we have all of the litter trays in a line in the utility room, we think we've provided our cats with 4 litter trays, but our cats would see that as 1 location for elimination. So when we're thinking about locations and areas, we need to ensure that they are in ideally different rooms on various levels of the house. So if you've got a 2-storey house, you need some upstairs, some downstairs. We need to think about the litter type. So cats tend to prefer fine, unscented clumping litter. So there are lots of different brands available. I'm not going to name names that come as fine, unscented clumping litter. But if we're thinking about what can we do on a budget, sand or soil from the garden can work just as well because it's generally fine and unscented. Thinking about the size of the litter tray, they should be long enough for the cat to be able to stand up in, to turn around and to scratch and dig a hole in. So if we're thinking about dimensions, it should ideally be 1.5 times the length of your cat from nose to tail. So another thing to consider and definitely think about avoiding are plastic litter tray liners and litter scent powders or deodorizers. When a cat is trying to dig before or after elimination, if we've got a plastic liner in the tray, their claws are going to get caught in that tray and that's going to flick litter all over them. Scented powders or deodorizers might smell nice for us, but they can be quite aversive for our cats when they're going in to use their tray, and it can also mask their scent that's already in that litter tray, so they might not want to use that litter tray again. The next thing we need to think about with litter trays is hygiene and cleaning. So the ideal litter tray hygiene routine would be scooping them at least once a day. The ideal would be, without stalking them to the litter tray and standing over them, the ideal would be picking it as soon as we've noticed that they've been to the toilet. We need to refill the litter as needed to ensure that there's a good amount in the tray for them to dig and scratch in. We need to think about doing a full litter change once a week. So that's where we take all of the litter out, whether it's soiled or not, and dispose of it, and then wash the tray. So the washing of the tray should then be done once a month. It can be increased if we want to, but it should be washed with a mild, unscented soap solution and then be allowed to air dry. Once the tray is dry, we then need to refill it with at least 5 centimetres of litter. So the reason for the 5 centimetres is that it's deep enough that they can have a good dig in it, dig a hole and then eliminate within that hole without getting to the bottom of the tray and then not being able to dig any further. If they haven't got enough depth of litter in their tray, that can be very, very frustrating because they cannot then do that full cycle of elimination behaviour. If we've got a cat that's got lower urinary tract or FIC symptoms, or we've got any concerns about stress in the house or bladder related issues, then a full empty and a clean of the tray should ideally be increased to once a week for them. Another thing to think about with our litter trays are the older arthritic cats that we might have under our care. So one of the big things we need to bear in mind is, can they get to the tray without having to navigate stairs? If we've got an older cat with muscle wastage, we've got an arthritic cat with sore joints, they might not want to go up or downstairs to get to a litter tray. So we need to make sure that we are providing the resource of a litter tray appropriately for these older animals. The other thing to think about is, can they get into or out of the litter tray okay? A lot of litter trays have quite high sides, and if you've got a smaller cat with a sore hip, they might not be able to comfortably get into and out of that litter tray. And pain getting in and out of the litter tray is going to quickly lead to an aversion of using that litter tray, or them holding on to the urine, which then can contribute to our lower urinary tract or FIC symptoms. If we've got an older cat that's always used a covered tray, can they still get into that tray? Can they push the flap and step into the tray at the same time, or is the coordination plus all the movement just too much for them? So what can we do to help our older arthritic cats? Can we have a litter tray on every level of the house? A lot of clients aren't going to like this idea, but if we've got an older cat that cannot get up and down the stairs, then they need to have the opportunity to eliminate on every level of the house that they have access to. Can we use a low-sided litter tray? So there are some litter trays available that have the side cut down, so there's a little gap for them to get in and out. The other option is, we don't have to spend a lot of money and buy new trays. Can they cut the side of the litter tray down that they've currently got and then make sure that the edges are smooth without any sharp bits that the cat can hurt themselves on? Another idea, if we've got an older or arthritic cat, is, can we use the lid of a plastic storage box? They're generally relatively shallow, easy to get in and out of, and you can put a good layer of litter into it for the cat to have a dig in. Another thing to think about is, can we use a plastic box instead of a tray, so that the cat does not have to step into and out of it. We literally have a large plastic box with a hole cut into it that the cat can get in and out of, and then the litter is all over the bottom of the box. So the hole inside of the box becomes their litter tray. One other thing to think about with our older arthritic cats is thinking about what other types of litter trays are available. Rabbit litter trays can be very useful for our older arthritic cats because it's much easier for them to get into and out of than a cat litter tray, as the sides tend to be much shorter than a cat tray. In this section, we've had a discussion about litter trays and meeting the environmental needs of our cats by making sure that their litter trays are appropriate. In the next section, we'll have a discussion about access to resting places and the ability to play.